Welcome to Passport Mommy. I'm your host, Michelle Jerson. This show is for anyone raising little humans. We feature experts with tips and advice to enrich the lives of our children. Mom and dad entrepreneurs tell us their inspiring stories. Learn about products that could make both you and your child's life easier and more fun. And of course, fellow parents discuss and laugh about what's happening in their child's world. Motherhood is a journey. Thanks for joining me on mine. Welcome to Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson. I hope you had a good week. I hope you're doing well. I know you're probably preparing your kids to go back to school, or maybe some are staying home and doing the distance learning. Maybe you're doing a pod. It looks so different for so many people this coming fall, but you might want to get one book that I just received recently. And I have to say, my daughter is 3.5, almost 3.5, and she loves talking about germs, right? I guess because everything that's going on. She always wants me to tell her about germs and how to prevent germs and to wash your hands. And she wants to talk about people wearing masks. And so when this new book was brought to my attention, I was really excited. And she was even more excited because we literally opened it up and she was so thrilled to look at it. She opened it immediately and she said, read it to me, read it to me. And she had me read it to her 2 or 3 times in the first day. And that book is called Bailey Bloom and the Battle of the Bug. And the author is Jill Rosenzweig. I'm thrilled to have her on the show today. Hi, Jill. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So your background is so interesting to me. You grew up in Montreal. You spent your winters ice skating on a lake, your summers at sleepaway camp, and then you graduated from McGill University with a Bachelor of Arts in Poli-Sci, Political Science, and earned your law degree from Boston College. You moved to Manhattan. You practiced civil litigation for more than a decade. Then you moved to Los Angeles, started a podcast, The Whole Truth, with Jill Rosenzweig. And later that same year, she began pursuing her lifelong goal of writing a novel while still practicing law and caring for 2 children. I don't know how you do it, Jill. But then in the middle of this, COVID emerged. And then this beautiful book emerged, this children's book.
Yes, it's been busy. It's been a busy time. Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, what inspired you to write the children's book?
Well, I guess like many people that probably listen to you, I had a situation where my kids are 5 and 8 years old. And when we started hearing about cases overseas, we did tell them about coronavirus. We sort of briefly explained it to them, but we didn't really get into it too much in terms of how it might affect their lives. And one day my kids were at school and it was right before pickup. We got an email saying that their school was closing. And I came to get the kids and I had to have a pretty serious conversation with them about what was going on. And it was hard for them and very shocking, I think, just to go to school and then suddenly realize that you're not going back. And we were about 10 days into them being home when I saw an article that had been written about this small town in the UK where parents were encouraging their kids to make rainbow art for their windows. And kids were walking around through their neighborhoods looking for rainbow art, almost like a scavenger hunt. And I thought that that was such a cute idea. And then I saw that friends of mine were doing the same thing in Brooklyn, New York. And so we decided to do the same thing here in LA. And I had my kids, we made a huge rainbow poster that we put in our window. And it was the first time since they'd been home where I could see that they felt so happy. And the reason for that is because I explained to them that when people were going out on walks, they were lonely because they had to be alone and we had to stay away from people. And I said that when people are feeling worried or stressed out, it could actually make it easier for them to get sick. And if they're feeling happy, then their body is stronger and better able to take on a virus. And so my kids felt from that they were actually helping combat COVID. And it made them feel so happy and proud. And ever since then, we've been doing stuff like that where we do things to decorate our neighborhood. We also donate to charities. We send gifts to people. We send groceries to people. And every time we do stuff like that, I can see that my kids are feeling less helpless and more like they're part of the solution. And so the book was really written for my kids, and it was a way of me showing them what they were doing and the impact that it was having. And I read the book to my kids. It wasn't illustrated at the time. It was just, a bunch of words on a page. And I came into my daughter's bedroom and I sat both of my kids down and I read them the story that I'd written. And they were so into the story, it really affected them. And so I just decided to go ahead and publish it. So that was really how it came about. It was very unintentional. It was not my plan going in to publish a book. But I just decided, why not? I mean, really, why not?
Yeah.
That was my attitude.
And I give you a ton of credit because I feel like so many moms have ideas and they really want to do things, but there's so many things going on in their mind. Like, I can't do it because I don't have the time and you just went and you did it. And that was one of the things that I was impressed with. I said, well, this hasn't been going on for too long, this coronavirus. It might seem like it has been, but it hasn't been too long. And for you to go ahead and write and illustrate and turn around a book in that amount of time, I thought was really impressive.
Thank you. I think part of it was also ignorance. So I think if I had understood going in how much time it would take, I might have hesitated more. But I think because I had absolutely no clue what was involved, I wrote the story and I thought, okay, well, I pretty much have done 90% of it. And I didn't realize how much it takes to actually publish a book. So I think that was good in a way because ignorance is bliss. And I thought, okay, all I have to do is find an illustrator and the rest of it will sort of come together. But it ended up being a ton of work. And I loved the learning process of it. So it wasn't a negative thing for me. I really liked doing something new, but there was a huge learning curve and it was fun. I mean, obviously during the pandemic, my kids have been home every single day. I have not spent more than 20 minutes away from them in months. But I think it was really good for me to be involved in a project right now where I just kept thinking about all the parents that I know that are struggling with how to talk to their kids about the pandemic. And that really kept me going, the idea of putting this book out into the world and maybe some kids benefiting from it, maybe some parents benefiting from it. So that was really the motivation behind it.
Yeah. So how did you find the time? I mean, being that you were not away from your kids for more than 20 minutes, how did you find the time to do it?
I don't even know. I just sort of made it happen. There were a lot of emails involved. The first thing I did was I tried to figure out whether I should go the traditional publishing route or I should self-publish. That was the first thing that I tried to figure out. And I quickly realized that when you go through a traditional publishing house, it can take a very long time to publish a book, a good year at least. And I knew that I wanted the book to come out quickly because of the timeliness of the topic. So at that point, I made the decision, okay, I'm going to self-publish. Once I made that decision, I realized that the most important thing for me to do was to find an illustrator. And that was a process of me looking through, there's actually a website where a lot of children's book illustrators put their portfolios on this one website. So once I figured out that there's one website that I need to go to, that was helpful to know, okay, I'm going to choose this one place to go to, and I'm going to look through pretty much every single portfolio on there. And that was about a 12-hour process where I think it was on a Sunday. I said to my husband, can you please be with the kids? And I sat down and I looked through hours upon hours worth of portfolios. I found about 10 illustrators whose illustrations really spoke to me. They had the right kind of, the right approach, I guess. I was really looking for someone whose illustrations were very happy and whimsical and positive and colorful. And I just wrote those people and said, hi, I wrote a book. I'm wondering if you're available right now. Some of them were moms who said, I have zero time. I can't do this. There's no way I can do this right now. So I ended up finding someone who was actually based out of the UK. We never met one time, not once. We would meet over Zoom, and our communications were mostly over email. And it was just a matter of me continuously checking my email to see if she'd written me or if I needed to write her. And I would do this in between feeding the kids or playing with them or doing projects. I was just sort of quickly shooting off emails to check in and make sure things were still moving forward. So, you know, it was kind of one of those things where I was just squeezing it in when I could.
Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I want to talk to you more about that coming up, as well as the details of the book. So tell everybody real quickly before we run to break, where can they find Bailey Bloom and the Battle of the Bug?
So Bailey Bloom and the Battle of the Bug is mostly being sold on Amazon right now. And it's being sold in pretty much every country. So Amazon in Canada, Amazon in Japan, you can pretty much find it there. It's also available on Walmart's website, Barnes & Noble, other big box store websites.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jill Rosenzweig. We are talking about her new children's book that it talks about the coronavirus and how kids are dealing with it. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. More coming up in a few. You're listening to Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson. I'm thrilled to be here with Jill Rosenzweig. She is a new children's book author and so timely. Her first children's book is Bailey Bloom and the Battle of the Bug. And it talks all about coronavirus and what young children can do and are doing to help others during this time. Jill, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. So tell me a little bit. I mean, I've read the book a few times now. I've only had it a couple of days, but my daughter, it's her new favorite book and keeps asking me to read it to her. Tell everybody a quick synopsis of what the book is about and where it can maybe help parents, especially as they send their kids back to school.
Yes. So the book is about three girls who are best friends who love to play superheroes. And they realize one day that their school has been shut down due to the pandemic. And they quickly, instead of sort of sitting around and not knowing what to do with themselves, they actually sort of jump into action right away. And they come up with a plan to help people in their neighborhood during the pandemic. And their first order of business is trying to figure out if there are any elderly neighborhoods who may need help getting groceries or cleaning supplies. So they go about trying to help their neighbors with that. And then they sort of realize that they also want to decorate their neighborhood and make it happier and more joyful during the pandemic. And the idea behind that is to make people feel better and so that their immune systems might be stronger so that they can better combat COVID. So those are sort of their goals during the pandemic. And ultimately, they end up going back to school. And one of the things that was important to me was the idea that, you know, to give kids hope that eventually they will go back to school, whether that is now or sometime in the future. But I also wanted to sort of address that idea that school might look different. And so that was something that I sort of carefully focused on, was the idea that if they do go back to school, some kids might be wearing masks when they're at school. Some kids may be sitting separately when they're at school. So that is something that I had represented in the book so that parents might be able to have that conversation with their kids about what going back to school might look like.
Right. That's terrific. And I love how it just brings in all, you know, a bunch of different kids as well as their parents and their grandparents. And I was able to sit with my daughter and she would say, well, why are those people wearing masks? Why are those people not wearing masks? Oh, is that a grandma and a grandpa? Oh, what are the kids doing for the grandma and grandpa? And it was just so well done. And the storyline is great. It flowed. The illustration, I think, was so terrific. And I just give you so much credit for putting together this book in such a short amount of time.
Thank you so much. I think for me, I wanted the book to be something that, at least for my kids, they love stories that involve superheroes and unicorns and rainbows and all of those things. And I wanted it to be a book that kids would love, even if you took the pandemic out of it. so that it would just be something that they would want to read regardless. And the pandemic aspect of it would be woven into the story so that it would give parents an easy way to talk about what's going on without sort of forcing the topic. Because I know sometimes when we want to talk to our kids about something that's really difficult, it can be awkward and we don't want to force it on them. But I think if the book is fun, the conversation will happen naturally. At least that's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. And I also just love all of the life lessons that are in the book, even if we're not in a pandemic, like you said, like helping people who might be in need. I mean, if it could help kids see that if they have a neighbor or their grandparents who need something, that they can help in ways that they can bring other people happiness and smiles.
I think that that's so important to me in general that, you know, at the end of the book, the kids go back to school and I talk about the idea of them being helpers now to their other kids at school. I think that that's such an important thing because not just to make sure that our kids end up being good people, but also because I think that when things are really hard, getting outside of yourself and focusing on what you can do for other people can be so good for your mental health. And I think that that's true for young children as well. And so that's something that I think kids can be doing right now is, okay, what can I do for my friends? What can I do for my neighbors? I think that that'll help them feel good, even though things are definitely odd at the very least. Yes. It's a strange time for sure for everyone.
Absolutely, 100%. So tell me again, where can people go to get this book?
So people can find Bailey Bloom and the Battle of the Bug on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place to find it, especially with people being home right now. So if you just search for the book on Amazon, you'll find it there. You can also find it on Barnes & Noble and other local bookstores, but probably the easiest is Amazon.
Great. And I love the title, Bailey Bloom. That's such a cute name. And the Battle of the Bug.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome.
I hope to make more books with her. So it's supposed to be a series and I wanted a name that I love so that I can live with that name for a long time. So
yeah, it's a great name. I love it. It's so cute. And it's such a good children's book name. And I just love everything about this book. So thank you so much again, Jill Rosenzweig. Thank you for joining me on the show. Thank you for bringing to my attention your wonderful new children's book. I wish you continued success with this and all the books that you have to follow. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. And don't forget, if you're listening to the show on a podcast, please leave us a review. It means the world to us. It only takes a minute. And if you would like to say something to Jill, that would be great too. Tell her how much you enjoyed this segment. And you can always follow us on social at Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson. More coming up in just a few. Welcome back to the show. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. So we've been doing a lot of segments on how to prepare if your kids are going back to school, what it looks like if they're staying home and doing distant learning or homeschooling. But I have to say, I haven't really spoken with a lot of people or maybe anybody about what parents are doing who have preschoolers like myself. My daughter is 3.5 almost, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, right? On one hand, I want to send her back to school and I want her to have the socialization and I want her to have the basic learning that you get when you are in preschool. And I think that's important. On the other hand, I'm thinking, well, if other schools are still closed, there's a reason for that. And I don't feel 100% comfortable sending her back. But I would love to find a curriculum or a program of some sort where it could be my guide and I can help her still flourish throughout the year. So I was thrilled to be introduced to Dawn Leslie Stewart. She is the founder director of the Perry School and Think Tank. And she has had her Think Tank program for years, even before COVID was a thing. And now I'm thrilled to speak with her today because she's going to talk to us about what it is and how we could maybe take part and sign up for it if we are parents to a preschooler. Hi, Dawn. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about the Perry School, about Think Tank.
Sure. Perry School has actually been in Manhattan in the West Village we're actually hitting our 20th year anniversary this October.
Wow.
And we've been doing Think Tank in person since 2008. That's a program that I created. It's an academic preschool program that we've been doing in person since 2008, and then it was in the works to go online actually pre-pandemic, and it just so happens that when the lockdown happened, we had a full opportunity to put this thing into motion and really see how it would affect and the successes that it would have on preschoolers.
Right. So, which is amazing. So how did you finish the school year post-lockdown?
Well, interesting. As you know, this came down very last minute. We were shocked. It was the night before that we had to find out that we had to close the school down. And fortunately, we did prepare in advance. We had our ear to the ground and thought that this might come down. And we had a full staff meeting right away, and even before the lockdown. And the day of the lockdown, a big Zoom parent meeting to really try to put a seamless transition into play. And we were able to do so. We actually got all of our classes running. We closed down on the Friday, and by the Monday, we had pretty much our whole curriculum for Perry School up online for all of the families to make sure that everyone felt safe. And since many families had scattered, to different locations, it really brought us all together.
Yeah, that's incredible how fast you worked on that. So as somebody who has your own school and also has this online program, what is your opinion on balancing classroom time with remote learning?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important to get a high-quality online program. As we know, when we've read many of the schools, preschools, and ongoing schools, K through 12, and even college, did not do well on the online platform. So we actually would recommend some Zoom training for the teachers that is very needed at this point in time. But so yes, get a very high quality program, and then stay connected to the teachers. We actually offered one-on-one coaching with the parents, or actually even a caregiver or a family friend, anybody that was available, because parents were under so much stress. We did one-on-ones with them, and that certainly did help. We did one-on-ones with the children, which really made a difference. We noticed that once the child had a one-on-one session with the teacher, myself or another teacher, they really started to feel comfortable and open up to learning. Find a program that has small class sizes. That is really key. That is a huge key to success, because the children get more turns and more chances to participate. And in addition to that, I think it's really important for parents to realize that the homeschool connection, which has always been important in person, is even more so important online, that you sit with your child during the online sessions. They're very short. And at the same time, spending time reinforcing that information and that curriculum at home when it's convenient and a happy, peaceful moment at home, so that everybody can stay intact, because there's usually a lot of moving parts.
Right. So let me ask you, as a mom to a 3-year-old, I try to do virtual music classes with her online, and I also have a 1-year-old. So it was challenging for me to, number one, get her to sit for more than 3 minutes in front of the computer, and 2, having to also balance taking care of my 1-year-old at the same time. And I don't have the luxury of necessarily having somebody to watch him while I work with her and get her to hopefully sit in front of the computer, which I know she won't. Do you have any answers to that? Or is it just a matter of trying to get them to sit and say, this is what we're doing now? Okay.
I think a couple of tips here for parents are, actually one of the things that we did that was very helpful for parents is we took a tour virtually around their home and found the best spot for learning. It's a little different with music than academics. So with the music, you could have, a lot of musical instruments around her. And I would recommend actually putting different things. If you're holding your 1-year-old and walking around the apartment, you can put different instruments, take an instrument in, bring one out, bring the scarves in, or the fabric, whatever they're doing, and have the environment changing in front of her so she can redirect. Like I said, one of the things that we did, we went around the homes and found the ideal situation for them at home would have the least amount of distractions. We also created something called Zoom etiquette. So we wanted to make sure that when the child came into the environment that they were, for example, not eating. Eating during a class, even if it was in school or online, it doesn't make a difference, is very distracting for a child.
Right.
Also coming dressed for school, depending on what you're doing, whether it's music or academics, coming dressed for the classroom, making sure that you have a clear space and a space that they can be comfortable, not on a sofa, for example, where they could be bouncing around and going into playing gymnastics or doing forward rolls when they're supposed to be learning. It gets kind of crazy over there when that happens. And really just trying to minimize the distractions. And if it's an academic program and a more learning program, having a table and chair is super important, and having, again, the least amount of distractions happening at more like a quiet zone, which is key here.
Right, exactly. And do you have any recommendations for parents who are juggling, say, their own work while taking care of their children? Because I feel like that's always a struggle. And I tell myself, okay, I'm only going to watch my kids now, or I'm only going to work right now. But it doesn't tend to work out that way.
Sure. Well, again, I think having a lot of patience and knowing that not to be perfect is important, and that you're doing the best you can do, and having a happy home and a happy family is always number one. I also recommend, if anyone, if you can find someone, even if it's a mother's helper or a family friend, or if you could even at this point perhaps even get a small pod, joining up and teaming up with another family that is also safe, going into this phase, going forward into our recovery from the pandemic, that could also be helpful.
Right, exactly. As long as everybody's on the same page with that. I know I've been trying to find a mother's helper, and I've posted and I've said, listen, I would feel comfortable if you wore a mask and that you're doing the best that you can to social distance, and nobody's responding. Nobody's getting back to me. Yeah. I think we're on different, different ends of the spectrum.
One other tip I can give you, Michelle, is that if it's something like music or dance, something that's more open-ended, don't worry so much about it. We do music and dance here too, and the kids are running around dancing. They're running all over the house, and it's no biggie. I think for the more academic programs, try to take that time, because it's totally worth it in the end. You want to make sure that your child doesn't fall through the cracks. So if it's a program like Think Tank, sit down with your child for the 30 minutes, try to make that time available, and then the rest of the time, you're just sort of, I don't want to say winging it, but being more open-ended.
Right, exactly. And I feel like with 30 minutes, that's a commitment that you could say, okay, I'm just going to give those 30 minutes. It's not a huge time commitment on either end. And then you feel better, because then you feel, okay, my child has gotten what they've needed for the day. And now I could feel a little more at ease with them just running around the rest of the day.
Sure, and also remember, they are getting social interaction at that time. They're connecting with teachers, they're connecting with peers, and all together with the parent homeschool connection, we're all doing it together and getting it done. Right,
exactly. Because I was going to ask you, what do we do for the socialization end of things if we're not doing play dates and things like that?
Sure. Well, it's interesting how creative and parents find a way to work around these things. But one of the things that we've noticed, besides being on the online instruction, is doing something that's now called Zoom Playdates. Okay. Yes. So we've noticed that the children at our school are making playdates with each other, with their parents, and it's making a huge difference. And although that certainly does not replace in-person contact or anything like that, it does bridge that problem. And they look forward to it. I've even heard that children are playing hide and seek in each other's homes and trying to find each other. So cute.
That's funny. And so Think Tank is your method of teaching young kids. How is your method different than some others that we might hear about?
Sure. Well, one of the things in Think Tank is that we've had success getting children into gifted and talented programs in New York City, which is not an easy task, and also into some of the very top schools, private schools in Manhattan. And even the children that go to the regular PS schools, the public schools, they end up being at the top of their class, not only socially but academically, which is amazing when you're talking about a large classroom size and one teacher. One of the other things that we are trying to do here is that we think that it's very, very important that children get an excellent start. It's early childhood years. And if you do the Think Tank program, you are certain that your child is going to pave the way for their ongoing education forward.
Right. And that's, it's nice to hear that, because on one hand, I think that. On the other hand, I think, oh, she's only 3. What's the big deal if she misses a year? But it is a big deal at this age.
It really is a big deal because this is the time where the brain is developing. If you do it right during the early childhood years, it will really set the tone and stage the confidence. The early childhood learning really is the key.
Okay. And so if parents are forced to stay home with their child, how do you help make their lives easier so that they can balance the childcare with their own jobs? I know we talked about this briefly before, but any other tips on that?
Well, first of all, not to stress out. We're doing the best that we can do, as I said before. I think a little bit of planning. One of the things that parents should do, again, is make sure that they do sit with their child. And as you said, it's only 30 minutes. Actually, 30 minutes a few times a week can do the trick. So just be very mindful of how you're spending your time. Try to make sure that you get your work done. Squeeze in a little here, squeeze in a little bit there. And at the end of the day, you're going to be fine.
Okay, great. So we all know that preschool can be very expensive depending on where you're sending your children. And many schools were forced to refund tuition this past year. Is online an affordable option? Is this a good alternative?
Michelle, the online is amazing in terms of pricing. You can actually get an education that you would have to come into Perry School and spend tens of thousands of dollars for right now online, anywhere in the world. And that is truly incredible.
Yes, it really is. So where can people go for more information if they want to learn more about Think Tank, maybe reach out to you and ask some questions?
Sure. You can find us at www.perryschool.com. You can also send us an email. There's little buttons you can press there if you have any questions, and we will be more than happy to answer anything that you have.
Great. Thank you so much, Dawn Leslie Stewart. Well, you have given me more confidence now going forward into the school year to maybe I will keep my child home, and I'll feel good that I'm doing it because I know that there's a great alternative.
Awesome, Michelle. We'd love to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. Are you craving a getaway or just simply want a change of scenery while working from home? Vrbo is the go-to for families who want to travel better together and reconnect with their loved ones. For 25 years, Vrbo has helped every type of family search, find, and book the perfect place to stay, whether it's a cabin, beach house, condo, or even a castle. With more than 2 million vacation homes available on Vrbo, there's a perfect place out there for every family. Whether you're looking for a private pool or a fire pit in the backyard, Vrbo Vacation Homes offer unique amenities that you can enjoy while making lifelong memories together. I've personally used Vrbo for my trips once I started having children because it just makes traveling so much easier knowing you have a kitchen, washer, dryer, and a lot more space than a hotel room offers. Ready to start dreaming about your next family vacation? Just go to Vrbo.com or download the Vrbo app. Welcome back to Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson, and I'm thrilled to have with me today Dr. Benjamin Singer. He's a pulmonary and critical care specialist at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. He treats patients in the COVID ICU and also has a research program in severe viral lung injury. Dr. Singer, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's a really important topic. So it's important to remember that flu is an epidemic every year. It's really impressive how many people come down with influenza. And as you mentioned, as we think about the upcoming flu season during the unfolding COVID-19 pandemic, there are a lot of things to consider. In terms of ways to keep ourselves safe, it's important to think about the ways that these viruses spread. And they spread in a very similar way. They spread by these little droplets that are shed by our mouth when we talk or even breathe. And so things that prevent the spread of COVID-19 should also help prevent the spread of flu. These are things like physical distancing and mask wearing. And far and away, the most important thing that can be done to protect yourself from influenza is to get the flu shot.
When can we start getting the flu shots?
The shots usually become available in the early fall. Some people will advocate waiting a little bit to get them, but any time that you can get one is the right time.
How do you see COVID-19 coming into play when flu season hits?
Yeah, it's important to note that both COVID-19 and influenza really affect older people in a much more severe way than they do younger people. While younger children can certainly carry COVID-19 and in rare cases have a severe course, influenza much more commonly will cause severe disease in the very young. So there's a little bit difference between the viruses there. And so really doing our best to try to protect the most vulnerable people in our households, the very young and older people who may be in the house or in our community, those are going to be really important things to pay attention to in the coming flu season.
Do you have any strategies for facing the upcoming colds and flu season?
Yeah, of course. And I think that most schools, daycares are putting into place as much as they can really enhanced measures to try to prevent spread of viruses like COVID or flu. And these are physical distancing measures, masks when possible, hand washing, wiping down surfaces, and again, getting the flu shot.
So if we do get sick, how do we determine if we should go get tested for the flu or COVID?
Yeah. It's really very difficult to determine what virus is causing your symptoms because the symptoms that come with COVID or influenza are so nonspecific and so overlapping, right? It's fever, cough, shortness of breath, feeling fatigued, having muscle aches. And so when those symptoms start, really the best call is to your doctor to try to figure out what the next steps are. But without a test, and hopefully a test that can be done quickly and get the results quickly, it's not possible to tell based on those initial symptoms what type of virus is causing the symptoms that a patient may have.
Based on what you're seeing at Northwestern Memorial Hospital right now, do you have any predictions about what the COVID situation could look like in the fall?
Well, I certainly hope that we will continue to adhere to physical distancing measures, to mask wearing. These are the things that really will control the spread of COVID-19. But if we're unable to do those things, I do worry that COVID could come back in the fall. It's always a bit hard to predict how severe any given influenza season is. Fortunately, a lot of the data from the Southern Hemisphere, which is in winter right now during their flu season, flu has been pretty mild, even in places where COVID-19 has been spreading widely. So I hope that predicts a fairly mild season in terms of influenza, but we can't let our guard down.
Dr. Benjamin Singer, thank you so much for joining me today. For more information, you can go visit nm.org/radio. That's www.nm.org/radio. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're listening to this on the podcast, please leave us a review. We'd be so thankful. And you enjoy the rest of today and have a great week. And I'll talk to you next time. With 25 years in the vacation rental business, Vrbo is the go-to for families who want to travel better together and reconnect with their loved ones. Every time you book with Vrbo, you get the entire vacation home to yourselves. You'll never have to share the space with other than the friends or family you're traveling with. That means you can enjoy the ample space, privacy, and amenities Vrbo offers while making memories together that last a lifetime. Whether you're looking for a beach house, lake house, ski chalet, or cabin in the woods, Vrbo has the perfect vacation home for your next getaway. I've used Vrbo to book my Florida getaway and my amazing Italy vacation a couple of years ago. We stayed in the most breathtaking of homes with really friendly and helpful owners who gave us great tips on what to see in the area. Need inspiration for your next family vacation? Just go to Vrbo.com or download the Vrbo app. But I'm warning you, it's really addicting. Again, just go to Vrbo.com or download the Vrbo app.